Amnesty International has written an open letter to the President of the United States, Joe Biden, ahead of President Cyril Ramaphosa's state visit to America. The organization has urged the two statesmen to discuss human rights issues facing both countries. We're now joined by Genevieve Quintal, Amnesty International South Africa spokesperson. Genevieve, thank you very much for availing yourself this Friday. So, in a letter that is to the President of America, Joe Biden, you have a number of issues that you outlined. Before we get into each one of them, why was it important that you penned this letter to him?
Good afternoon, Dudu, and thank you for having us. We penned a letter actually to President Cyril Ramaphosa, as well as one to President Joe Biden ahead of this meeting. And as Amnesty International, while we understand that top of the agenda is issues such as the war in Ukraine, climate change, which we welcome because we see it as a human rights issue, trade and investment, we also believe that human rights challenges must be granted the same level of priority as economic growth, trade and other diplomatic matters. And so concerning this, we decided we'd write to both presidents, asking them to highlight certain ongoing human rights issues in the respective countries.
Let's focus on the letter that is addressed to President Joe Biden. You want him to tell his counterpart or to put on the table the issue of migrant rights and xenophobia. What does he need to understand about that?
Well, as we know, migrants in South Africa have been subjected to violent physical and verbal attacks by especially anti-migrant vigilante groups, which ultimately has led to a number of murders. And we saw this year the murder of Elvis Nyati in Deep Sloot. This problem first began in 2008. As we all know, more than 60 people were killed during attacks. And these have continued every single year since. There have been sporadic xenophobic attacks throughout the years with businesses owned by migrants targeted. And so we're saying in the meeting with Ramaphosa, we really would like Joe Biden to urge him to emphasize the importance of the South African government employing a national strategy to prevent violence against migrants and bring an end to impunity enjoyed by perpetrators of these fatal assaults. And we've said it before, there is no accountability for those who perpetrate these assaults, and so these crimes just keep on happening.
You also want them to focus on right to education. What do we need to understand about that? As we all know, school conditions in South Africa are terrible, Dudu. Amnesty International, we've actually this year been looking at pit toilets, and there are still 5,167 schools that are using illegal pit toilets, which is a huge health concern and puts a lot of children's lives at risk. We see that according to the 2013 minimum norms and standards for public school infrastructure, all schools should be provided with sanitation by November 2016. We are now in September 2022, and we have still not reached that milestone. We still have schools with pit toilets. And so really, we cannot allow this to continue. So as Amnesty International, we're urging Biden to recommend that concrete timeframes remain in the amended regulations. And I say that because just recently, the Education Department the Basic Education Department, has gazetted changes to the norms and standards, or opened it up for public comment, in which they want to take away the deadlines for this, which means we will have no way to hold them accountable if these issues are not sorted out. What are some of the issues in your letter dated to President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa that you would like him to put on the table that you feel are plaguing the everyday American?
I think top of mind for everyone is access to abortion. We all saw in June this year the Supreme Court overturned the constitutional right to abortion, a right that has existed in the United States for nearly half a century. It was a very progressive legislation, and South Africa itself has very progressive legislation when it comes to this. And so, given South Africa's own leading example and the impact the Supreme Court ruling has had on access to health, not just in the United States but globally, we are urging President Biden to declare a national health emergency and to protect abortion access in the United States. We would like Cyril Ramaphosa to push that forward as well with Joe Biden. Other issues we're raising is gun violence. We have seen the gun violence in the U.S. As in South Africa, the gun violence crisis is growing worse. But in the U.S., we've seen how kids have been mowed down in schools. So we're asking President Ramaphosa in his meetings
with members of the Congress as well as with the President to press for the passage of the Break the Cycle of Violence Act and the assault weapon ban, and really, sharing our own experience in terms of crime in this country and what we're seeing, and really pushing for that. And then lastly, we've asked President Ramaphosa to also speak to President Biden about the COVID tests and treatments. South Africa has really shown leadership at the World Trade Organization regarding equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines, testing and treatment. And this while the US and the EU have prioritized the pharmaceutical industry's interests. Mm-hmm. So we are really requesting Cyril Ramaphosa to urge Joe Biden to unilaterally refrain from using World Trade Organization or other trade and investment dispute mechanisms to stop or dissuade countries from producing or distributing COVID-19 medical technologies as they are needed.
As we speak of human rights, and as you've written to both of these presidents, how big of a concern is the issue of Black Lives Matter for Amnesty International, especially with some sectors of the community in the United States feeling like they are a target for police officers?
It's a big issue for us. We stand for anti-racism, and just as the world stood with us as during our apartheid years, we expect global solidarity for the Black Lives Movement in the US. People there are a minority, and no one should be discriminated in that way. And so we ask again that President Ramaphosa really, speak to President Biden about this. It's unacceptable, and we definitely stand with the Black Lives Matter movement.
Any response from either departments?
We got a letter of acknowledgement, and from President Ramaphosa, a letter of acknowledgement and saying thank you for the letter, and he receives it favorably. We really hope that these discussions take place, and we will continue to push for these discussions to take place. Whether they happen now in the future, we just have to keep pushing and hoping that human rights issues are also put at the fore.
Genevieve Quintal is with Amnesty International South Africa. She speaks for the organization. Thank you.